Snow pressed against the tall glass windows like cold, silent hands, and inside the vast penthouse glowing with golden Christmas lights, a woman sat alone at a dining table built for 12. The food was untouched, the candles burned low, and the only sound in the room was the faint ticking of a designer clock that cost more than most people earned in a year. Every Christmas, the same ritual, the same silence, the same hollow ache she could never outwork, outspend, or outthink. She was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, a woman who signed deals that moved markets, who commanded boardrooms with a glance, yet on the one night meant for warmth and family, she was smaller than the shadow behind her chair. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the strongest hearts sometimes just need someone to knock on the door. Her name was Alara Hayes, and the world knew her as a titan of industry, the steel-minded leader who had rebuilt a collapsing tech empire into a global powerhouse. Magazines praised her discipline, her intelligence, her relentless focus. None of them wrote about the apartment she grew up in, where the heating barely worked and the fridge hummed louder than her mother's tired voice. None of them knew that success had been her escape plan, her shield, and eventually her prison. Years ago, in the race to prove she would never be powerless again, she had missed birthdays, lost friendships, and let love slip quietly out the door because quarterly targets seemed louder than a beating heart. Christmas had once meant something else. As a child, it meant a second-hand tree and a single shared gift, but it also meant laughter squeezed into a tiny kitchen and a mother who somehow made cheap cocoa taste like magic. After her mother passed, Alara promised herself she would build a life so big that loneliness could never find her. Instead, it followed her to every luxury penthouse, every holiday gala she declined, every quiet December night where city lights sparkled like distant stars she could never quite touch. That night, snowstorm warnings rolled across the city, flights were canceled, roads slowed to a crawl. Her staff had been sent home early with bonuses and cheerful smiles she forced herself to give. Now, wrapped in a silk blouse and memories she tried not to open, she stared at an empty chair across from her, imagining a version of life she had once postponed until after the next big milestone. The milestones had come and gone. The chair remained empty. Across town, in a neighborhood where streetlights flickered and the snow piled higher against narrow sidewalks, a single father named Mateo struggled to keep his old car from stalling. His daughter, Lily, bundled in a coat 2 sizes too big, clutched a small, carefully wrapped box in her mittened hands. Mateo worked 2 jobs, one at a warehouse and another doing night maintenance, and still some months felt like a tightrope over an endless drop. That year had been especially cruel. Medical bills from Lily's winter pneumonia had swallowed their savings, and the small bakery Mateo's sister ran, their usual Christmas gathering spot, had closed just weeks earlier. But Lily had insisted on one thing. She had seen a story at school about people doing kind acts for strangers during the holidays. Her teacher had spoken about a woman who funded scholarships for kids who couldn't afford school supplies. Lily had gone home wide-eyed, asking questions, and later that week, she found an old article online about Alara Hayes, the CEO who had quietly donated to children's hospitals years ago, before the headlines focused only on her corporate battles. Lily had decided, with the fierce certainty only children possess, that someone who helped sick kids must not be alone on Christmas. Mateo had tried to explain that important people lived in secure buildings, that they didn't just show up at doors, that life wasn't a storybook. But Lily had saved a small part of her allowance, bought a tiny snow globe from a discount shop, and drawn a picture of a bright house with people holding hands. She said sometimes grown-ups forgot how to knock on each other's doors, so maybe kids had to remind them. Through a string of coincidences, an address found online, and a long, uncertain journey through the storm, they found themselves standing in the lobby of Alara's building, soaked, nervous, and close to turning back. The doorman, moved by Lily's trembling explanation and the earnestness in Mateo's tired eyes, made a call upstairs, expecting it to be declined. Instead, after a long pause, Alara heard herself saying yes, though she didn't fully understand why. When the knock finally came, it startled her so much she nearly dropped her glass. No one ever came unannounced. For a moment, she simply stood there, heart beating fast in a way no business negotiation had ever managed. When she opened the door, the hallway light framed a man with snow in his hair and a little girl holding a crookedly wrapped gift like it was treasure. They stepped inside hesitantly, bringing with them cold air and something else she hadn't felt in years, unscripted humanity. Mateo's coat was worn, his shoes damp, his posture carrying the weight of someone used to apologizing for taking up space. Lily's eyes, however, were bright, curious, and completely unafraid. She looked around not with envy, but with the simple wonder of a child who still believed big rooms meant big stories. Lily held out the small gift with both hands, explaining in her gentle, uneven way that she didn't want anyone to be alone on Christmas, especially someone who helped kids like her when they were sick. Alara felt the words land somewhere deep, in a place she had sealed off behind achievements and schedules. She knelt, something she hadn't done in years, and accepted. The snow globe. Inside, a tiny house stood under white flakes, warm and lit from within. As the evening unfolded, the vast penthouse felt different. Mateo spoke quietly about long shifts, about Lily's hospital stay, about the fear that sits in a parent's chest when money and time both run out. Alara listened, really listened, not as a CEO evaluating a proposal, but as a human being remembering what it felt like to be scared and small and hopeful all at once. She saw her younger self in Lily's oversized sleeves and in Mateo's determined exhaustion. The food on the table was finally touched. Laughter rose unexpectedly and stories replaced silence. For the first time in years, Alara wasn't measuring the night by productivity or loss, but by warmth spreading slowly through a space that had been cold for far too long. Something inside her shifted, not a dramatic revelation, but a quiet, irreversible turning, like the first crack of light before dawn. In the days that followed, Alara did more than write a check. She restructured part of her foundation to support families facing medical debt, created flexible work programs for single parents in her company, and most importantly, she began opening her life, not just her wallet. Mateo found stable employment through one of those programs, not as charity, but as recognition of his skills and resilience. Lily visited the office once, leaving a drawing on Alara's desk of a big building with many windows, each one glowing. Years later, Christmas at the penthouse no longer meant a table set for ghosts. It meant noise, mismatched chairs, children running through hallways, and a woman who finally understood that success was hollow without someone to share the light with. The snow globe stayed on her desk year-round, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is a small knock on a heavy door. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and let your feelings be known. Your support keeps these stories alive and spreading hope. Before this story ends, write in the comments, kindness can knock on any door. Because that Christmas, a lonely CEO learned that even the highest towers can feel like homes when love finds the courage to climb.